Linda Povey, University of Portsmouth. Thank you,
Thanks
Linda.
very much, Phil. Right, morning everybody, and I'm so pleased to be a part of today's event because running and looking after the self-employment placements at the University of Portsmouth is one of the favourite parts of my job with our students. So as you see there, I'm the Enterprise Advisor down at the University of Portsmouth. So my role really is twofold. I do look after a lot of the extracurricular activities that we do, but I'm also very much involved in embedding the enterprise education into the curriculum with our academics, mindset, creating the mindset, awareness and development side of things. You'll see here in rather big letters, it says NEST. So NEST is really our brand or identity, we like to call it, because we don't want to get called a sub-brand at the university, for student enterprise. So this time last year we were student and graduate enterprise, and these days we are known as NEST. And it's all about building a community of like-minded individuals for our students and our graduates, and hopefully as time goes on for our staff as well. So we're based in our innovation centre. It's a university-owned building which is 3 stories high, and 2 of the floors are income-generating floors. So external startups come to us as a university and use the space and pay for it. But the middle floor is dedicated to our students and our graduates who want to set up businesses. So that's not just our students who are self-employment placements, but anybody that wants to give enterprise a go, really. So the background to our self-employment placements is I joined the team in 2012, and the whole team underwent a bit of a shift, and we had a few new people come on board. And for a couple of years, self-employment placements, as they were called, were allowed to be undertaken by our games development students in one of our faculties. Now, in the stricter sense of self-employment placement, it wasn't self-employment at all. It was basically a project year. They were allowed to go out and design and develop a game across the year. So there was no real commercial awareness, no value from that side of things in it. When I arrived in the October of 2012, I was handed a couple of sheets of paper. I had a look, I couldn't quite understand what it was. But basically 2 students from another faculty had been allowed to go out on self-employment placements to set up businesses. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to contact these students because they'd been told to go off and do something in the June, and come the October, no one had been in touch with them. So I contacted them. And it was really quite worrying and disconcerting because one of them was already about £6,000 in debt, and one of them was just about to sign a lease to take a shop that he had no experience, no stock or anything. So it was at that point we said as a team, right, this is, we've got to take this in hand. We've got to come up with a more structured proposal, more structured process for the students. And that's what we've done really since 2012. So this is our definition that we use for the staff and the students. Basically, it allows them the opportunity to develop enterprise entrepreneurship skills while starting up and running a business. They can run a social enterprise or simply acting as a freelancer during your placement year. And we include the word freelancer in there because a lot of our students struggle with that term, and it is the terminology that confuses them. How do I know if I'm a freelancer? Aren't I a consultant? What sole trader? So the terminologies, we try and make it as clear as possible for them. So, at the University of Portsmouth, we haven't actually got any senior management really driving enterprise and entrepreneurship. We're really struggling. We're not really struggling. We're doing a great job, but we're constantly looking for that sort of sponsorship from above. So we're trying to put everything that we do in the context of the university strategy. So our university is committed to providing high-quality, career-enhancing activities to all students by 2020, and enterprise obviously is a part of that, the career-enhancing activities. So as NEST, we aim to build a robust and adaptable ecosystem that promotes and supports each student's journey through to enterprise effectiveness, from new venture creation to securing graduate-level enterprise-rich employment. So we're trying to raise our profile, and as I say, put it in context. We also have our education strategy. And within the education strategy, there are several hallmarks that we aim for a Portsmouth graduate to have as when they leave the university. And these are just the ones really that we feel are really key and linked to the self-employment placements. They've got to be able to generate ideas and develop creative solutions. And it actually says this in our education strategy. So, it's great that we can link it to these. It actually says they've got to have an enterprising spirit. So that's where the self-employment placement comes in, bringing innovation and productivity to groups and communities to which they belong. And our graduates need to be proactive in recognising and addressing personal development needs and being able to make informed career decisions. And as Phil said earlier, not all these students are going to come out saying, yay, I'm going to go into self-employment, I'm going to carry on the business. They do come out sometimes going, really not for me. So that's fine. What it's done is help them make that career decision for their future. And we do set it, obviously, with the QAA. We look at the QAA documentation. Is everybody here familiar with the QAA? Lots of nods, yeah. Okay, so obviously, we do a lot of work around the enterprise awareness, the mindset, the capability, but we see where the self-employment placement sits is really that entrepreneurial effectiveness. It's letting them give it a go and having a try at it. So I'll just put this one in because it's something, as I said, we do talk to our students about. What is a freelancer? We tell them how many of them there are, and it's on the increase. But what's interesting, we point out to them, is that 1.65 million people work freelance in main jobs, but a further 255,000 people work freelance in second jobs. And that links very much to, you can be self-employed while studying, and in fact, if you're doing your self-employment placement, you can still be working part-time. Very much like here at Huddersfield, we're not against the students working part-time. We actually put a maximum hours of 20 hours a week that we like the students to work if they need to work part-time to bring in some income. So, numbers for us at Portsmouth. Here you can see, obviously, CCI, which is where our games development groups are. That's obviously the highest by quite far. And what we've done with them now, it's not just a project year, there is commercial awareness. And it was a real fight and a real challenge for us, actually, with quite a lot of academics, to say, no, they will be counted as self-employment placement and they will go through the same programme that all the other self-employment placements go through. And we've seen quite a few changes in the outcomes from our games development groups, and I'll talk a bit about that in a while. The red line here is our business school, Portsmouth Business School, so sort of slowly on the increase each year. Technology came on board in 2014, and science and humanities, you can't see the sort of science behind here, they've only just come on board in the last sort of year really, so we've got quite a few inquiries this year from them, so we're hoping that we'll see some figures coming through for next year. So the total number of sets for us, this year we've had 26 go through, sort of each year it is going in the right direction. This is a couple of months out of date now, actually. Our inquiries for this year, the very last bar you can see there, has gone up to about 35 now. So we're hoping that we'll convert, and we'll probably end up, I think, this year with about 20, realistically looking at them for this year. But unlike Huddersfield, at the moment we don't put a cap on it, but I might start thinking about that. You've given me quite a few ideas. So our challenges, because what we've done, as I said, we now offer it across all 5 faculties. Originally it was just our creative and cultural industries, then it was the business school, and then technology, and now science and humanities. And there have been challenges along the way when trying to convince not just academics but also placement officers that this is worthwhile for the students. So one of our academics, the leader of placements in our technology faculty, said to us, what's stopping them from just hanging out at the beach? And I had to be quite honest with her. I said, well, any student could really hang out at the beach if that's what they wanted to, but we've got a process in place, we've got a structure that we do keep an eye on them. There is regular two-way communication. So we do sort of try and mitigate against that, but there are days when if it's a nice sunny day, they're going to go down the beach. And in my lunch hour, I'll go down the beach as well. So, professional body accreditation, so particularly with technology as well, where the professional body's involved, we do leave that to the academics and to the faculties to sort out, but it is possible. So I know the IET do accredit the self-employment placement for technology. The terminology has been quite difficult because we're a central resource in the university. And every faculty, and I think a lot of universities work like this, faculties and schools tend to work quite siloed. But what we try to do is, say this is the scheme, this is the SEP scheme that we offer across the university. And of course, every faculty will slightly differ in how they manage it. But students come to us going, well, I'm not quite sure, am I doing a SEP? Am I doing a SPI? So one faculty insists on calling it a SPI year. We thought we'd got it all sorted, and then another faculty popped up and they're now calling it a SEPI. So, and we want to call it a SEP, so students know exactly what they're getting. Okay. And consistency of message and resources template. So about 18 months ago, we put together a staff pack. So all the members of staff that were involved knew what was involved, and a student pack. So when a student comes to us with the first inquiry, we can send them the pack of all the information. In that is the business proposal template they have to fill out as one of the first steps. One of the other faculties, without us knowing, recently this year decided to introduce their own template and forgot to tell us. So we've got students coming to us saying, I don't know which one I'm filling out. And they're filling out one which is, for us, just a complete barrier for them because they're expected to put so much information in it, whereas our template is very basic. More often than not, it is the seed of an idea, so they don't quite know, how to fill out a proper business plan, and that's fine. That's why we've kept it basic. So that's the real challenge for us, is to try and manage the 5 faculties and say, look, let us run with it, but we do need your help in some aspects. Academic and student awareness, letting students know that this is an option for them, and the academics as well, so they can obviously sell it on to the students. And the academic supervisor buy-in. So our students will get obviously help from us in the NEST team, but they're all allocated an academic supervisor for the year as well. And that is really key because it is a sort of mentor-mentee relationship, but sometimes the academics are told they've got to do that role. And what we're looking for is the academics that really want to do it and really understand the value in it as well. We had an example recently where some students came in our games development programme and they gave their mid-year presentation to find out that they were a group of 3, 2 had disappeared off the face of the earth, and one guy was doing the whole thing by himself because the academic supervisor had not been keeping up that communication. So we felt terrible as a team because we now say actually we need to step in and be more on the ball as well between that partnership. So we're going to put some terms of reference down.
Is cost a challenge?
When you say cost?
This is a question really. Do they pay for the year round? Do students pay a fee for the year round?
Yes, I think they pay £900 at Portsmouth. Yeah.
And has that ever come across as to help sort of naturally capital numbers? Do these students sort of complain about the £900 fee?
They don't complain about the fee, but what does cap the numbers is the financial ability to be able to do the year quite often. And we look at it very closely. It's one of the first steps we do with them. We give them a personal survival budget and we'll say to them, okay, let's work out what you need to survive for the year. Are you going to be making money straight off, or is it going to be a few months down the line until you start to generate some revenue? So we do look at them very closely, and we have turned students down on a financial basis, that we don't want them to get into financial debt. Sorry, I'll come back to you. Is that all right?
When you said the academic supervise them, how much involvement are you having as a team then, if it wasn't to a mid-year review that it was kind of identified that there was a problem?
Yeah.
Not, because obviously Huddersfield was saying that they were sending monthly reports in to the business advisors.
Yeah.
Are they sending their monthly reports or equivalent to the supervisors?
We have 6. We have a guideline that says minimum 6 weekly communication. So at least every 6 weeks, you've got to be in contact with either one of the member of the NEST team and have a one-to-one, or your academic supervisor. And what we say to the academic supervisors is, if they're not coming to you, please flag it to us as soon as possible so we can pick it up, and we're happy to do that. So there's obviously a hole and a gap in our process because that hadn't been flagged up to us. And because they're not based, this particular group weren't based in our innovation centre, it was a hole.
My next question then is, what qualifies the supervisors or the academics to be offering business support to support them on a self-employed year?
Yeah, normally it is the subject-specific side of things. So particularly if we think of the games developers, we don't have the technical knowledge. Yeah, rather than the business support. We do say we supply all the business support, but it's the technical subject-specific that the academic supervisor looks after. So from the student perspective, they normally come to us quite often. They've been working with us anyway since joining university. They've got a business idea they wish to pursue, or they're considering starting their own business, becoming self-employed when they graduate and want to see if it's for them. That's quite a common one as well. And the independence and freedom to try out their new ideas. They do see it as a real sort of safe point in their life to be able to give it a go. And they often say to us, it's been great because I felt completely supported. And I've just been able to play around with my ideas and see if it's something I enjoy, you know. Why not? When we tend to say no is they do come to us and say, I just want to suspend my studies. Haven't really got an idea, but not quite sure where I'm going. So that's not going to go anywhere with us. And they do see it as the easy option. And I think as Phil said earlier, it's so not the easy option at all. You know, it's quite a challenge for many of them. They'd like to join friends doing a SEP. And we're not averse to friends working together, but they've got to bring value. Every member of that team has to bring real value and be able to demonstrate what they're going to bring to the business. And this is a common one. They can't find a traditional placement. So at this time of year, we are beginning to get a few more inquiries in because students are going, I've been looking for a traditional placement. I can't find one, but I have been running this business on the side, so can I do that? If it's just because they can't find a traditional placement and they haven't got anything else to do, they just want to come up with an idea here and now, then we'll say no. But if they've already got some traction and they've been working on an idea already, then we will consider it as an option for them. So, what is the SEP year all about? We make it very, very clear that it's not about how much money your business makes, okay, and how successful your business is. We make that very clear to them at the beginning. It is about the skills, the behaviours and the mindset that they develop during that year. Okay, so we're very, very clear on that for them. Because as I said earlier, you know, some businesses will start making money from day one and others potentially might not make any money at all during that year. Just because the business hasn't succeeded or hasn't created a revenue doesn't mean they're going to fail the year. I'm going to whiz through these next few slides because these are our sort of process that we go through, but basically they register their interest with the placement office and they also have to come into one of our drop-in clinics that we run for advice for any student wanting to discuss self-employment clinics, self-employment options. So we run those clinics twice a week. They have to develop a business proposal, as I said, send it to us. When we're happy with the business proposal in Nest, we let the placement team know that we're happy for them to present to a panel. So the panel normally consists of a team member from Nest, the placement officer, normally a personal tutor or a course leader, because again that's important. We ask for an academic reference as well to make sure they have been attending their studies, they've been committed to their studies for the last 2 years. And then the students are informed very quickly of the decision. And when we had someone present yesterday, and I was able to email her by lunchtime and say, well done, you know, you've been accepted onto the SEP. They've got to make sure it's completely their responsibility. They've got to make sure they understand all their assessments. They've got to understand what their deadlines are. We have had someone fail in the past because he completely missed his deadlines. No matter being told how many times and how many emails, he still managed to not get his assessment in on time. So unfortunately that didn't get recognised as a sandwich year. What they do have to do as well is enrol on our Route to Startup programme. We have a business development programme, again open to all students, that they have to, during the year, attend all the workshops on that programme to take them from conception to reality. So that basically says the same again there. They have to do the Route to Startup programme. They're assigned the academic supervisor. They do have to do a self-employment placement workshop. We hold a mandatory workshop, which is normally half a day. And I'm quite interested in the fact that you, at Huddersfield, you're doing the week, induction weeks. That might make it a bit easier. But again there, it's making sure they're all starting from the same baseline. So we cover things like IP, some of the legal aspects, some professional etiquette, get them all started at the same stage. And it also gives them a chance to meet each other. And also to meet the staff that are involved as well. So not just the Nest team, but other academic supervisors, the placement officers. They have to do, as I said, an initial evaluation. So they meet with their academic supervisor and they go through an enterprise assessment, so very self-reflective, where am I at the moment? And then they'll repeat that at the end of the year. They have to do 6 weekly review meetings. And then during the year they do 2 further formal presentations. So we have mid-year presentations round about normally about January, February time, and then the end of year presentations are all happening about now, sort of May time. Okay.
Sorry, excuse me, can I just ask at what point do the students start this process? So if your programme runs, say, from August to whatever, at what point does the student know they're going to be doing that?
Right, so ours actually starts from September, so the beginning of the new academic term ours starts from and runs through to the end of June. And there's no set deadline as to when we tell them that they're doing it. We have had students come through to us in July, August, you know, with great ideas, and we've said, yep, we'll get you onto the programme, that's fine. But most of the time, by the end of May, most students will know, and we like to tell them as soon as possible, you know, so just they know what they're doing. So benefits that we see coming through, obviously the development of their business and enterprise skills, the development of self-awareness, self-reflection, their confidence, their self-belief. And I said at the beginning, running the SET programme is one of the favourite parts of my job, and this is why. Because I see students, and not just me, but in the team, we see students coming through who at the beginning of the year, we're going, not sure if they're the right type of person, have they got that commitment, have they got that drive, because they have trouble, you know, making eye contact, they're quite shy, and they're not quite, you know, they haven't got that self-belief. And the difference by the end of the year is just incredible, and it's so lovely to see. They'll stand up and give presentations and answer questions and really be able to defend their business decisions they've made. And when they reflect, and again, you know, in those, we do a reflective portfolio that they have to complete. Reading those, as Phil said, is absolutely fantastic to be able to see that journey that they've gone on. Future-proofing, so generating business and career options, tolerating of uncertainty, risk and failure. And this is a really quite an interesting one, because I say we get the very shy, some of the shy students coming through, but we also get quite a lot of quite arrogant students coming through as well. You know, yeah, I know it all, I don't need any help, I'm fine with this, thanks very much, I'm going to disappear and go and do this on my own. I'll contact you every 6 weeks and just let you know I'm okay. And when things don't go right for them, you know, it's really interesting to see how they react, and again, how they learn from that. So it's not just about confidence building, but it's also about taking away the arrogance, but just having the right amount of confidence. So from personality development and personal development, it works both ways. And their final year dissertation and studies, it does play a huge role in their final year for them quite often as well, and feeds into their final dissertation. So as I said, we have the innovation space where they can work with us, and they have self-employment placements. They do get 24/7 access to the building. There's an event space up one end where we do hold our events and workshops, and the other end is sort of open plan office desks. And it's exactly as I said, and as Phil said, it's about what happens in that space. You know, we like to encourage them to be there as much as possible, because it is about watching those partnerships form, the collaborations, the new ideas generating, and the skills being swapped. What's different between us and Huddersfield, though, is we don't make it mandatory for them to be based in the innovation space. Some of our students will be based back at home, and if we can see why from a cost point of view, and they can work the business from home, then that's absolutely fine by us. So we encourage them to be based in Portsmouth and in the innovation space, but it's not actually mandatory.
Sorry, for me that's a really important question, actually. Prevention for starting this, you know, quite a while ago, was the need for dedicated space, and it's interesting that, you know, Huddersfield have mandatory sessions in the Duke of York Centre and you don't. Has that impacted on any of the students' outcomes at all, not having dedicated rooming or space?
It's not so much the having a dedicated rooming and space, and it is unusual, but it has impacted on, as I said, if they're not there under our noses, so to speak, it is harder to sort of be able to work with them and support them. So there have been occasions when, I mean, one example is a group of, well, they first came to us as a group of about 9 games developers and illustrators, and we said, no, 9's far too many, we need to bring this down. So there were 5 of them in a games studio, and 2 were based up near Reading, and the other 3 were based down in Portsmouth. And straight away problems occurred because the team were based in different locations. And after quite a lot of, well, not quite a lot, a couple of meetings getting them all together, it became transparent that actually the 2 illustrators needed to set up on their own, and the 3 in Portsmouth needed to go their own way, and that was the best outcome for all. So it does have implications sometimes, not all the time, quite often it works really well.
But it does geography and team, demographic and team,
Yeah.
isn't it? But
Yeah.
not necessarily it's a precursor or a negative.
Yeah, not always.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, thank you.
So this is our Route Startup programme, as I said, that they all need to attend. So a series of interactive workshops going from idea validation, customers, competitors, the money side of things. And we also hold our Entrepreneurs Lounge series, and these are sort of the expert speakers that come in on a monthly basis and will talk about crowdfunding or pitching or press and PR. So that's quite an informal get-together. Someone will come and talk for half an hour, and then it's open to floor questions and answers.
Are they mandatory?
The Entrepreneurs Lounge series aren't, but the workshops are.
Sorry, the top ones are the bottom.
Yes, yeah, the bottom, this Entrepreneurs Lounge, which is sort of they sign up and attend, and anyone can sign up and attend, aren't mandatory, but these 4 workshops are mandatory. So we have lots of resources, just a quick snapshot of part of our website. You know, if we're not around, there's always, you know, they can go onto our website and have a look at our resources page. So challenges for the students, motivation, self-doubt, and it was really interesting, again, what Phil said, because I could pretty much lay money on the fact every January I'm going to get at least 2 or 3 students come through the door saying, this really isn't for me, I'm really struggling with this. And it's always that sort of January point. So it's about sitting down with them, looking at the positives, and it's the counselling side of the job almost. The finances, sometimes I said, but we're very tight on that, particularly at the beginning of the year. Location, trying to decide where they need to be based. Managing the friendship groups. And again, we do allow the groups of students, not just in our game development, but in other areas. But Phil is completely right. It's a real challenge managing these. We've had groups of students, and I'll talk about a case study in a minute, where it all went a bit pear-shaped, but it does take a lot of time, you know, managing their friendships. And communication, making sure that communication does happen.
So you were talking about students come to you if they've got problems or self-doubt and all of that. What's the balance of where the students go if they've got problems like that? Would they only come to you, or would they sometimes go to the academic supervisor, or where's the responsibility?
Yeah, it depends who they've got that relationship with, and that's why in Nest we're really keen. We do try and build up those relationships and keep an eye on them. Doesn't happen all the time, obviously. They do tend to come to us primarily, yeah. So I think they see us as a little bit sort of aside from the academic. You know, that's one of the things about Nest is we're trying not to be different from the university, but some of the feedback from students. They didn't want the enterprise to be quite so formal, quite so university-led. They wanted it to be like a little sort of pool on the side, a community on the side of the university. So assessment, a variety of assessment according to what faculty they're in. They have to submit the diary, looking at the work undertaken, their reflective portfolio, and those are normally about 2,000 words on the word limit for those. Evidence for the professional accrediting bodies, and as I said earlier, the 2 presentations they have to give during the year as well. Oops. There. Credit bearing, again, basically not credit bearing because they're all ghost credits. I can't seem to get my head around very well. It is basically a pass or fail, and they will get the sandwich year recognised on their degree parchment. But if they fail the placement year, it doesn't have any effect on their final degree outcome. So it's not going to bring them down from a 2-1 to a 2-2.
Sorry, can I ask, both universities, are your normal placement years credit bearing?
No, ours are pass or fail as well.
Yep, same, pass or fail.
Okay, have you any plans to change that? And would you make this credit bearing?
We haven't got any plans.
No, I suppose if traditional placements change, then we would potentially look at the implications of changing with them, but there aren't any plans as far as I'm aware.
So just want to talk through quickly a couple of examples of students who've undertaken the step. So this is Valentine. He's just won our Self-Employment Placement of the Year award. So we do a big showcase where we give out awards once a year. And Valentine took a very basic business, a cleaning business. He's grown it since he actually started in mid-August, growing the business. He now has 17 people working for him on a contractual basis, and he's already franchised into South London and Petersfield, so now can look after clients in Portsmouth, Petersfield and South London. He's so driven, and he's actually struggling now with the business is growing so fast, he's not quite sure how to manage it. So we've brought in some extra mentor help for him to manage how that business is going to grow, but obviously for his final year as well. We're very aware he's got his final year coming up, he's got to be able to manage both. This is Wolfden Creative, so this is one of our digital media students, a gentleman called Dennis. He sits in the innovation space with us as well. He absolutely hates this slide because apparently I stretched his logo, which is something you should never do for a graphic design business, so I was in trouble for that one. But basically, he started off doing graphic design, then he's moved into branding, much more social media marketing, and he's also taken on 2 first-year interns. So he's got 2 first-year students working as interns for him as well. A few here, so these are a couple of quite successful game studios that we've had go through. I think No Trace and Square Mountain were in the top 51 games in 2016. And Streetscape exhibited at Comic-Con last year. So I think we've made real progress with what was a games project year to actually improving the commercial awareness and getting them to think, okay, we're creating a game, that's what we love to do, but who's going to buy it? Who's going to use it? Who's going to pay money for it? How do we even begin to do that? So we've changed the focus of that year for the games development students. And we're quite pleased because I said it was a real challenge to get everybody to buy into that one. Hayes was a successful lingerie business. Hannah has just graduated, and what was lovely was that she did really well during her self-employment placement year, but then decided to put everything on hold for her final year, and then came back to see us about 3 weeks ago and said, right, I want to get the business up and running again. How can I help? How can you help me? You know, what do I need to do again now? So that's, you know, a good, successful outcome for us. Southampton Booze Cruise, Poseidon Events. I said I'd mention a group that had friendship difficulties. This was them. They started off as a group of 3 from our business school running an events company, and it quickly became clear that one was leading, the other 2 were sitting on their backsides, not really doing a lot. So it took a lot of self-reflection from their perspective, and with us sitting with them as well, to actually say, do you know what, you all need to go your separate ways, this isn't working, your friendships, you know, they were all arguing amongst themselves. But what they didn't do was they didn't let it stop them. They didn't go, well, fine, I'll just take the rest of the year off then. By December, we'd got Joe working on his own, running his own businesses, and he now runs about 3 or 4 different businesses, and the other 2, Toby and Will, went off to set up their own businesses. So it's about managing when conflicts happen. It's just about us sitting down with them and managing them. Polar Digital, again, they sit with us in the innovation space this year, and what's really lovely about them is they're web developers. 2 guys came with 2 ideas about a year ago, and we said, hang on, you need to talk to each other. So they hadn't met before, and they work really, really well now. They've got a client base. I think they're bringing in about, I think they said it's about £10,000 in revenue at the moment, so they're really pleased with it. But what's lovely about these guys is that they've been sitting with us in our incubation space, and we get used to having, you know, all the students there, the regular students, and they said to me last week, can we have a quick meeting, can we talk to you? So I was thinking, okay, what's going on now? And they're actually moving out of the incubation space. Part of me is like, no, you know, proud parent, no, you can't move out. When I look at it from what we're supposed to be doing, you know, we are building them into confident businesses that can then move into, you know, business premises. And that's exactly what they're doing this week. They're moving out into other business premises. So again, you know, really, really pleased with the outcomes for them. Andrew did a self-employment placement in 2013. He then went on to the Entrepreneurs First Foundation. I don't know if people have heard for it, but he was successfully applied and got onto that, where he met Charlotte, and they now run a social enterprise called Inkpact, doing incredibly well. I think they're on their 2nd round of funding. They basically employ young stay-at-home mums, teach them calligraphy, and then do marketing services for big organisations who don't want to do mass email but want the personal touch. And he attributes it very much to his self-employment placement. He says, if I hadn't done the self-employment placement, I think I'd still be struggling. Have I got time to show this clip very quickly? It's a couple of minute clip, just a couple of students talking, is that all right?
Can I ask just what you're doing? What's your gender mix for the 20, 25 places?
Yeah. This year, 26, and 3 girls. Out of the 26, we have 3 girls. So, yeah.
Do you have any issues regarding the types of businesses they want to run, either in terms of conflicting commercially with the university or reputationally? So one of the challenges, I'm sure all colleagues often have on businesses tend to be campus-based or student-focused. How does that present any issues?
Not conflict-wise, no. And obviously it's illegal, so no-go. The interesting one that we're getting more inquiries about is just trading on the stock market. Students go, I want to take a year and I'm going to do some trading. If it's just base trading, well, no, because where are your skill sets? You know, not really a self-employment placement year. But what somebody has done with that, they've come to us this year and said, okay, you know, I already trade. I'm now going to trade on behalf of other people, and I'm going to train other people how to trade. So that to us, you know, looking at the business proposal, constitutes a self-employment placement. If they're just going to sit in front of a computer and trade, that's no go.
Yeah, there's a bit of follow-on from that really in terms of reputation, but it's the duty of care from a university perspective. So you mentioned that when you first started, you found a student that had £6,000 worth of debt. What do you do, and I think this is for both universities as well, what do you do to manage the fact that or the possibility that the student could come back and say, well, I was under your duty of care, I got myself into a load of debt as part of this course, and the legal aspects were surrounding that.
Yeah, I mean, we've never had it. I think, touch wood, we're not going to, but it's a good point. We do make, because it's not credit bearing, and it is all about the risk element, so that is made very clear to them at the beginning. And do you know, I honestly don't know if they came back to us and said, oh, I'm X amount in debt. I don't know what the duty of care to us is, and that sounds terrible, but again, that's why our processes, you know, try and mitigate against that happening in the first place. And I was so shocked when I first arrived to find that student in debt. You know, for me, that just, it shouldn't have been allowed to happen.
What about things like insurances as well?
We do make sure, we have had a couple of close misses with insurances, so we do now at the beginning of the year make sure that the right insurances are in place. If they need licences, they've got the right licences in place. So we do work with them on those type of aspects. What about you, Phil?
In terms of duty of care, we actually have a contract that we issue to the student once they've been offered the place. The contract makes it quite clear that whilst we are there to support and advise, they're running their business. And actually, we don't want to be shadow directors, so that distances from that perspective. But because we have so much regular contact, we've never had it, and I think it would be very difficult for them to get into such a state without us being aware of it, because of that frequency of contact during the course of the placement year. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but we've taken all precautions.
You see a relationship between students who actually engage with you before the placement year, or do most students actually come to you as a new individual?
A lot of them do engage with us beforehand, but we also get quite a few who engage with us completely on a first time as well. So what does quite bring them to us quite often is, again, the Santander funding. We do a try it sort of award, which we've run a couple of times, and that brings them out, and then from that we've got funding. They quite often will try the self-employed placement.
In their application, I imagine that they already have been working.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we know them as people, you know, it's much easier if we've been working with them. We understand the business ethos. So yeah. What I'll do is, I'm not going to play this one now, just 'cause I'm very aware of time. So that's right. But it is, obviously, I think we're sending out all the slides, aren't you? Yeah. So do go on and have a look at it, because it's a couple of students talking, you know, from their perspective about the self-employment placement. It's quite a nice little video. Okay, so think. Successful set, I've talked over all of this, talked through this, complete assessment, confidence, belief, self-belief. Lessons learned, the insurances, we have had, you know, weak spots with insurances, licences, expectations versus reality. This year, we do want all 5 faculties to be engaging in the self-employment placements, and we're looking for cross-faculty steps. We want students to start doing interdisciplinary self-employment placements as well. And we're now looking at offering mini-SEPs as well, so to tie in more with units and professional development units. That's what we say to students, not telling you it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. And another quote there. But yeah, I think
Could I
that's
just
it.
ask one question about the credit bearing? When you say it's not credit bearing, do you mean it doesn't, what do you actually define by not credit bearing? Just so we're on the same page with that.
So as I said, it won't affect their final degree result, so it won't bring them down a grade. So they call them ghost credits, and I still can't quite get my head around, so I don't know if anybody else can help with the ghost credits, but
But it goes on the transcript.
it goes on a transcript as a
It goes on the
sandwich,
transcript
yeah,
as
as a
part of
sandwich,
the
yeah.
And do they get certification at graduation? Do they get a separate mention? How?
No, they don't at the moment.
So
it's
they
not
do
a
get a
separate
certificate?
diploma.
No.
We've got a separate.
Right, okay, yes, no, it's not a standalone one.
It's not standalone.
No.
Do they get any certification?
Not at the moment. It's something we're looking at. I've actually got someone trying to design one for us at the moment.
Just a point, we've let it, put it there in our version of this, so it is possible to do it.
As I said, I want to talk to everybody because we're still learning on this and we're continually, tweaking it and making it stronger. So am I right, Phil? One more. One
sure.
more question.
I was just going to ask, we were talking about the credit here, so did you get a sandwich award? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So on the degree.
Did you actually get credit for doing it in the reward title?
Yes, as they would with the traditional placement.
It actually doesn't affect their grades that they get.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So I just wanted to ask about the size of your teams, really, because obviously this takes up quite a lot of effort in
Yes.
supporting this.
It does.
How did you go start off? Did you have one person doing it, or how did it actually get off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to lead on it at Portsmouth. And we're tiny at the moment, we're only 2 of us in the team. We've gone down from 4 to 2. So this time of year, it's proven quite tough for us to try and keep on top of it. But yeah, it is. But now we've got the processes in place, it does make it a lot easier.
For us, the scheme started before I arrived here. I came in 2011, so I can only comment on what happened since 2011. But basically, as the process has become more refined, it's actually easier for us to manage. But we do limit the numbers for that very reason, because we realise that in order to give the students the best opportunity of success, they need to have access to us. And if we took too many, we just couldn't cope with that as we are at the moment. So we'd rather have a smaller number and a really successful programme than have masses of students and be struggling to see. Because it's actually only one little part of our offer. It's a big part, it takes a lot of work, but it's only one element of our delivery. If I could ask you to hold questions again, just in the interest, I know you've got so many questions, but we are doing a question time this afternoon, and we've moved it slightly because Linda's got to make the very long journey back to Portsmouth. So we've moved it, so it's not the last session, and you can quiz us again as much as you wish at that point.
And please, anybody can ring me, email me afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much, and it's really interesting from our point of view to learn about another model as well. Thank you.